right, good evening. How you guys doing? All right, you guys get something to eat? Cool, I'm glad. I'm so glad. No, thank you. You guys bought it. At least some of you did. I don't know if everybody was in on that, but some of you paid for dinner, so thank you for that. We got to cook it, so that was good. My small group, we've cooked the last 2 years. So if you've never been to a small group, sometimes you get to eat like that, so it's not bad, all right? And we're always looking for people to help cook, so anyway. Hey, so tonight is something we do once a year called Forward, and it's really a night, if you're here last year, you maybe got a sense of that, but it's really a night, I almost like to think of it as kind of like a family reunion, where we see each other and we're going to talk about the good stuff that's happened. We're going to talk about maybe some things that we can do a little bit better, but we're going to look forward and talk about some things that we are anticipating and planning. And so what you're going to do tonight is you're going to hear from all of our pastoral level people. From John, our executive pastor, from Sarah, who's our connections pastor, from Whitney, who is our community life pastor, from Don, who is our next gen pastor, and then I'll kind of end the whole thing, all right? We've got some people who have submitted questions. If you did not submit a question, you didn't pay attention. But that's all right. We're still going to try to save some time. If you didn't send one in, we're still going to try to have time for that as well tonight. We'll do our best to answer the questions that we can. If we can't answer a question directly tonight, we will do our best to follow up with you on it. All right? Everybody got it? So I'm going to pray, and then I'm going to bring Don up, and he's going to talk to us about our next gen areas, which is our children's and our student ministries. All right? Everybody good? Let's pray. Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for this evening and the ability to gather together to both celebrate what you've done, to anticipate with hope and with joy what you're going to do, and to be reminded that there is something really significant about your bride, about the body of Christ, that it's a privilege for us to be part of what you're doing in the world, specifically right here in Sparks. And so we don't want to take that for granted. We always want to follow your direction. And so as we gather tonight to talk through that, what an opportunity. And we cannot wait to see you glorified in this tonight and into everything that we do. And so, Father, just guide the discussion, guide our hearts. And, Father, we're just thankful for what you've done. We anticipate greatly what you're going to do. Lord, it's in the beautiful and the powerful name of your Son, Jesus, we pray. And everybody said? Amen. So one of the beauties of this night also is if you're not directly kind of in touch with specific areas of ministry at SCF, you may not really know some of these people very well. So I always think it's a good thing for you to see them and to hear from them, because if you don't have kids and you don't have students, you may not know what's going on in those areas. And it's good for you to know that God is doing good things there. If you're not involved in community life, why not, right? But secondly, you may not know what God is doing there, right? But we always want you to know, man, the scope of what God is doing through you, through this body, through all of us together. And so this is really a night to celebrate that. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Don Mattioni, who is our next gen pastor. I'm not sure why I said it like that, but that's okay. But anyway, if you don't know Don has been with us, is it 2 years full yet? Golly, all right. Seems like 12. No, I'm just kidding. But Don, if you don't know Don's story, let me just tell you, Don took a pretty good pay cut to come do what he does here with us. He left a corporate environment where he was making a lot more than we could pay him because he felt like this was God's call to come work with students, and has done a phenomenal job these last 2 years. And you're going to hear some of the successes of that tonight, that a lot of the growth that we've seen over the last year at SCF has been in children's and in students. And that's where you want to grow. I'm going to be honest with you, for the future of the church, you want to grow in those areas. And so a lot of that has been Don, and Don's going to introduce some other people who help in that area as well, who all of them have done a phenomenal job the last year, continue to do that. We're so excited to have all of them. And so with that, I like that you're just sitting there like halfway out of the chair waiting. He has no idea how long I'll talk, right? Like, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Don Mattioni. Will you guys give Don a big hand, man?
Thank you, Jason Hall. I don't know. Yeah. 12 years, like your haircut. Yeah, nice. Him and I are close, if you can't tell. Yeah. At least we can give it to each other. So, first off, thank you guys for being here. As Jason said, yeah, I've been, I think, is it April 1st, May 1st, one of those two dates. It's been 2 years since I left FedEx. I was there for 14 years. My first job, I worked my way up, and Jason and I had long conversations, and just kind of landed in my lap that I said, hey, I'll do this job. That's what I always feel like God's been calling me to do. And so to be straightforward and honest with you guys, this has been the best job I've ever had. I love what I do, and it's awesome to see what's going on. So hopefully you don't hear too much from me tonight. I brought two amazing people up here with me. Sally, how long have you been with SCF? Long time. 25, 27 years, around that range. Always in the children's ministry? So Sally's been in the children's ministry for that entire time, and the guy to her left is Eli Nightingale, and Eli Nightingale is a kid that grew up at this church, went through the youth system at this church, and is now a youth intern, about to be even more of that for this church because he has a fire and a passion for young students as well. And so, like I said, hopefully I don't talk too much. Hopefully I'm going to let these guys talk about what's going on in the youth and the children's ministry. A little background on Eli. I'm going to pull Eli first. Eli, sorry, Sally. Sorry. About a year and a half ago, Eli and I were having a conversation. He was one of my leaders for my middle school boys group. And so he kind of was talking about, hey, I want to get into ministry. And Jason and John, about the same time in a directional meeting, had said, you know, why don't you guys, kind of a weird way for me to say this, so just bear with me. John and Jason kind of said, hey, you know, start thinking of somebody to replace you. And what they meant is, in true leadership, and I learned this at FedEx for the many years there, right? You always want to be training somebody up behind you. To kind of replace you, because there's something could happen to me, something could happen to Sally, and then what do, right? And so this kid right here fell in my lap. He came forward. We started having conversations. I said, what are you doing? He went to YWAM, Youth with a Mission, in Orlando, Florida, and he didn't really know where he was going to land when he came back. And so John, Jason, and I started talking. I said, hey, can we bring in an intern? Because I think this kid would be amazing for the body of SCF. And so when he came back, we said, hey, is this something you want to do? And he absolutely said yes. So Eli has been, July 1st, right, is a year in his internship. And so, yeah, absolutely. So we got 6 minutes and 55 seconds left. I'll shut up. Okay, so we're going over that. So I'm gonna kind of turn it over here in a second. So Eli kind of came in, and part of bringing him in as an intern, started giving him things like, hey, I want you to do this. What do you think about this? Really vision casting, kind of a thing. And he's been really working with that the last year. And so I'll let him talk a little bit about some of the stuff he's been working on, what he foresees, we're in the baby steps. We're trying to land somewhere. So I'll let him kind of talk about that.
Alrighty. Well, how are you guys doing tonight? It's good to see you all. All right. So I'm not going to try to take up too much time. So a little bit of what I'm kind of working on right now in SCF Youth is there's a few different projects that Don has kind of given me that we've kind of had for a vision for what we want to see in SCF Youth. One of these projects that I've been working on recently is creating a student-led worship team and building it up so that there's now a culture of worship that's being cultivated in the youth. And then as a result of that spilling over into the main congregation as we see youth students graduate from our youth program, which I can't tell you how excited I am about that. Like, there's so much that God has in store for the youth. And this was one of those things where I kind of told myself starting it, like, if I start this, then I absolutely want to make sure that we can see it through. That it's not going to be a project that we're just going to say, hey, it would be a good idea, and, maybe we'll get to it, and maybe it'll be a thing. But, no, we actually want this to work because we want our students to feel like they can come to SCF and, man, they have something to contribute. That it's not just us leaders standing here preaching at them, saying something at them, and then hoping that they remember it. But instead, it's seeing these students with, taking real life experiences and realizing that, hey, Jesus isn't just for an hour on Sunday morning. He's not just for 2 hours on a Sunday night at youth group, but what he is every day of every single minute. And so that's one of the projects that I've been kind of working on right now. Don has kind of helped me kind of situate myself into this, and and as a result of that, I've gotten more of an intern role of being able to help plan for camp, which has been amazing. I myself have gone through camp almost every single year that I went through SCF Youth, and it had such a huge impact on me, and so I know the kind of impact that it can have on these students. And it's been so cool to see just the growth and the fruit from these kids. Let me tell you, I mean, I want to say it was back in February, I did a worship night over at my house, and about like an hour before everyone came over, and I invited about half the members of the worship team, and then any students who had told me that they were interested. And about like an hour or so before everyone came over, I started to think to myself, like, gosh, like what if no one shows up? Like what if no one shows up? And it was so cool to see all the members of the worship team come, but I had one student show up. And from that one student, we played worship, and he showed up, and he's like, yeah, I don't know an instrument. I don't even know how to play anything, but I want to learn. And so I gave him a cajon drum, and I'm like, all right, just do your best. And so we played worship, and after that night, he came up to me and he said, hey, I want to learn actually like how to do this. That I don't want it to just be tonight, but I want you to actually teach me what it means to play drums, what it means to worship. And so for the past few months, I've been able to give that kid lessons, and that has been such an amazing thing. It's been so amazing to see that kind of growth. And that's just one story. That there's a bunch that I've seen in the last year of having kids who've come into the youth program, and I'm like, gosh, I don't even know how I'm like supposed to connect with this kid. He wants nothing to do with Jesus, wants nothing to do, like you can tell his parents forced him to be here. Which church is never fun if you're forced to be there. And seeing that kid absolutely just blossom into a Christ follower, seeing him develop such a passion for serving and such a love for Jesus, and yeah, like it's still sometimes difficult to connect with him, but the amazing part is man, I've seen this amazing group of leaders just come around this kid. That's another story. And there's a lot more that I could share. I only got like 2 minutes left, so I am going to keep it brief, but guys, I want you to know that God is doing amazing things in the youth. That we want to get our students to a place where they're excited to serve. We want to get our students to a place where youth group isn't just an experience, that they're not just coming here and then leaving, and by the time they graduate to college, they look back and they're like, I don't really know what that was about. Like, my hope for this and Don's hope for this and what we've been talking about for the past year or so now is this idea of, where are they going to go once they come out of youth group, right? What is this group going to leave them with? And I'm happy to say that there's been just a lot of love for Jesus that I feel like we've given these students and seen in them. And another thing that we're kind of working on too is this idea of getting students more out into the community to serve, not just in the church, right, with worship, and eventually, hopefully, some other positions open up for that as well in the church, but as well as outside of the church, right? What does it look like to serve your communities, both here and then also, in their own personal communities, because we have students from all over, from South Reno to Spanish Springs to right here in this zip code, and so that's also been really cool too to work out. And that's kind of what I have to share. So, thank you.
So very briefly, Eli and I, what we hope to see I kind of gave you a snapshot of what's been going on. Forward, we do this event for a reason. So moving forward, you will see Eli and I kind of switch. I hope that he becomes the full face of the youth group. That is my goal for him. My goal for him is that he becomes the youth pastor of SCF Youth. He has my full support. And it was about a couple weeks ago we were running a meeting, and I remember just sitting there thinking, he's ready. And so, because I can't intern him forever, nor would I want to. I'll be honest with you. You don't just kind of ask this guy to just do what I say to do all the time. At some point, you got to release him and let him go and say, hey, man, I'm here from a distance, which is not very far. That's what we're looking forward to this year, is him and I kind of switching roles a little bit, which will help me kind of step back and look at the overarching of Next Gen ministry. And so thank you, Eli, man. I love you very much, man. Next person coming up, 25, 27 years. All right, something like that. Long time, she said. Sally is children's ministry, and I have to say this, as we're in the negative already. Nice, that's funny. I've known Sally for a very long time. I've been at SCF for 15 years myself, and getting to the chance to work with her and see her really kind of become who she is. Not that she wasn't anybody else before, but just watching her take this role of children's ministry and doing what she's been doing with it. And so I'm going to let her give a kind of snapshot of what's been going on in the last year of the children's ministry.
Thank you. So the cool thing about being here so long is that I've seen a generation grow up. And now we have that generation coming back and bringing their kids to SCF, which is cool. As Jason said, our numbers have been increasing, which is amazing. But you put 40 elementary kids in a room or 25 preschoolers in a room, that's a lot. So we needed volunteers. We did a push from the front. We got an amazing response. I added 16 volunteers to our schedule. So you guys showed up big time, and that's been amazing. One of the things that we've started maybe a year and a half ago is our parent connections. So we have had Awaken come in and do sex trafficking and cybersecurity. We've had a drug abuse counselor come in and talk to parents about what to look for. We've had a mental health person come in. We've had, Rich, do a family strategy. And so looking forward, we're looking to more of those classes. From those classes, we've asked what you guys want. So we have a grief support one coming up in the fall, and we have a parenting workshop coming up in the fall. And so we'll do more of that. And it's been amazing to connect with the parents in a different way. One of the things I'm looking to do also in the fall is to form a parent leadership team, parent advisory, whatever you want to call it. A group of parents that could help me plan special events and plan some of these parents' nights. So if that's anything you're interested in, come talk to me. And that's all I got.
Nice. All right, Jason, I'll wrap this up. Wait till you go. Yeah. So, little snapshot. That's Sally and Eli, and I will say this: the three of us working together know this directly from me. The heartbeat of what we want for children's ministry and youth ministry is completely relational, community-driven. I'm a father of myself. I have two young sons that are 6 and 4, and I can tell you right now, one of the things I want from my kids is I want them to know that Dad's here, that Dad is involved in their life, and that I will do everything I can to support them and push them towards being strong human beings and really live. And one of the ways that I'm not saying I have any of this figured out right now, like if you would have seen me yesterday, my hair was on fire and I was pulling what little hair that I have left coming out. So, but one of the things I'm kind of learning myself is if it's not important to mom and dad, it's not going to be important to them. I've watched my sons watch everything I do and everything my wife does. And so if it's not important to us, they're not going to learn that. We learn patterns as humans. I've learned a lot from my parents growing up, and then there's days where you have those moments you're like, oh, geez, I am my parents. Like, I didn't think I was ever going to do that, but I am my parents. If you look at me and my dad and you put us side-by-side walking, people go, that's Don and Donnie right there, because they have the same limp on the same side. Apparently I learned to walk from him. So, but that is the heartbeat of what we're trying to do. And so if we ask you to get involved, it's for that reason. Is we want your students, we want your children to know that mom and dad, it matters to them. And that we're, like Jason said, we are the future of SCF. This church building, this church body continues if it matters to parents. And so if I ask you to do something, know that that's the heartbeat behind it. It's not that I'm flying with my hair on fire and I need to throw bodies at something. I did that for 14 years at FedEx, and it doesn't work. It's because we want that for you guys. And so I couldn't have a better team. I love Sally and I love Eli, and we work well together. And so, yeah, looking forward, I do want to push this right now, and I'll end with this, is August 18th. We are going to do, if you guys have been paying attention to the main body, there's doing all these little connects, right? Men's Connect, Women's Connect. We're going to do a Family Connect. And so on August 18th on the parking lot over there, so the west side, after service that day, there's going to be a big barbecue for you guys. I won't cook tri-tip, I promise. Unless you want it, I'll do that. But we'll do a big barbecue for families. We'll have shade set up because it'll be hot and it's August. We're also going to have bounce houses and water stuff so the kids can play on. And my kind of goal out of that is Sally and I are really looking forward to trying to create, if there's, we've heard many parents, we're trying to listen to you guys, that I want to get in a small group, but I got kids. And what do I do with that? So Sally and I one day said, can we just pay for childcare and do it on a certain night? And Sally said, yeah, I already have it in my budget. And I said, okay, let's do it. So after August 18th, what we're hoping to start up is if you want to join a small group and get connected in community, you can come here on a Wednesday or Thursday. We haven't picked the night yet. And really just drop your kids off. We'll have paid childcare. We're working on getting those people right now. I think we have a few already. And so that'll be an opportunity if you've been hesitant to join a small group because you don't know what to do with your kids. And just so you guys know, we background check every single person that comes in here. And we really, the 16 people that came forward was people that were shoulder tapped. So they're people we were familiar with. They're people that we know. And so we're looking forward to all that stuff. So again, August 18th, we'll be doing a big Family Connect for all the families, and we hope to see you guys. Thank you guys very much.
Thanks, Don and Sally and Eli. One of the things that we know from studies is the number one determiner spiritually for the health of a child, spiritual health of the parents, right? The church tried for a long time that model where you just drop your kids off and we entertain them for a couple of hours, and then we couldn't figure out why they didn't love Jesus. Because we didn't try to teach them to love Jesus, we tried to just give them a good time, right? How many of you know, you can have a better time when you're a teenager in places other than church, probably? That's my experience. So maybe we should try to do it a little differently, and Sally and Eli and Don have really taken to a very different approach to what a lot of churches do with youth and with children. I believe it's the way we should work. I believe it's the way that we should operate. The reason we do those parent connects is because truly we're partnering with you. You have to raise your kids or your grandkids or the kids that you're guardians for. We can't do that, but what we can do is we can come alongside and partner with you. We can provide resources that help you to understand what does it look like to be a good parent or a good guardian, all of those kind of things. I heard a sociologist talking the other day, and he said, this may be the first generation that can actually say to their parents, you don't know what it's like to be a kid right now. I think it may be the first generation ever, right? That we look back and we think it was a lot like what it was when we were kids. Man, it's not anything like that. And that's not an excuse of any kind, and we just have to be realistic about things. And so I'm grateful for the partnerships we have, that we can bring in mental health professionals. We can bring in people who specialize in all kinds of issues that parents are dealing with. And we can actually give you the opportunity to hear from people who give you real tools, real resources, right? I never want to be the church where someone who stands up and tries to give you advice on things that they have no background or experience in. We want to make sure that we maximize partnerships, and when we have people talk to you about those things, they know what they're talking about. Because I don't know if you know this about pastors. Pastors will talk like they know about everything. As one, let me assure you that we don't. Right? So I want to be, we all want to be people who know our limitations and partner beyond our limitations. And so these guys have done a great job. If you've not been to those partnering events, let me encourage you to get to them. Right? Some of the stuff that people have talked about is, number one, it's incredibly enlightening to learn that this is what's going on in our culture, but it's also encouraging to know that we don't have to just be victim to all of it. That God is actually giving us ways to adjust and to deal with that. And so these guys are doing an incredible job. I'm thankful for them. So thank you guys very much. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to our next speaker, who is our community life pastor. And if you guys know Whitney, you love Whitney. If you don't know Whitney, you'll love her when you come to know her. So anyway, Whitney, come on up.
Hey, everyone. All right. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about community life, then I'm going to turn it over to Anna, who's going to talk some more about outreach and kind of what's going on in that area. And so anytime I tell somebody in community life that I work in community life, it's kind of an automatic needs a qualifier. Like, that's not necessarily just something people know, like community life. Oh, I know exactly what that means. And so the way I always describe it when I say I work in community life for my church, I'm a part of wanting to get people in relational environments. That's my whole goal. And once they get there, my goal is that they are healthy relational environments. Now, when I say healthy relational environments, that doesn't mean free of problems. Where there are people, there will be problems. Maybe you have found that out. But what we mean when we say healthy relational environments is I want this to be a place where you can grow in relationship to God and other people. How do we make that happen? How do I push you towards those spaces? And once you get there, how can that be optimal for growing in relationship with God and other people? And so Jason had come to Sarah and I don't know a timeline. I'm just going to say about a year ago. It could have been give or take 5, who knows what it was, but about a year ago, yes. So, time's a weird thing. So Jason comes to Sarah and I, and also I'll say this about Jason, and I'm pretty sure he'll be okay with me saying this. He is not a micromanaging pastor at all. Like, in my 7 years here, I can think of maybe 2 or 3 times he specifically asked me to do something. And so he comes to Sarah and I with a specific request. And he said, hey, this year, I want to see some kind of connection event for women. I don't care what it is. I don't care what you do. I don't care when it is. But I feel like just from a pastoral perspective, we need some kind of connection event happening for women. I'm going to work on it on the guys' end, but if y'all can work on it on the girls' end. And so Sarah and I quickly recruit Anna and Sally with all their relational wisdom and equity in our church and get together and then form a team to talk about what that's going to look like. And the reason that I tell you that story is because Jason was on to something from a pastoral perspective. Because what we've seen as we got to working on women's connection events is that connection really comes before community. That yes, I want to push people into community. I mean, push in like a gentle, loving way. Like, I want to get people, I want to get people there, but connection happens before community. As I've said several times, I've never been friends with someone I haven't met. Usually requires that. And so what we have seen is that if we can create spaces for connection, community can come out of that. And so I want to tell you a story about that. Recently, Janice and I, who's also a part of the Community Life team, were doing a new group leader training for some new group leaders that we had started, Tim and Maureen. And when we were meeting with them, just kind of casually, hey, tell us how you got in the group that you're currently in. And it wasn't down at the Next Steps area. It wasn't by filling out a card. It wasn't by signing up for something on the app. All those are all great things. Use all those things. But it was because they got to know a couple that they sat near during church, Jim and Carol, I think kind of in that vicinity. And then one day, Jim and Carol say, hey, you should try our community group. So they did. And Tim specifically told me I would not have come had it not been personal invite. I hear you guys make that call from stage every week, and I think that'd be great for my wife. That sounds like a great thing for her, but I'm good. I don't really need that. But there was a personal connection. There was a personal invite. It wasn't just somebody on stage saying, hey, come down. It was Jim saying to Tim, hey, check out our community group. And now they're stepping into a leadership role in that community group. And so what we want to do when we do connection events is we want there to be grounds where that can happen. We want there to be opportunities to get to know other people for the sake that community can happen, for the sake that intentional relationships can develop. So one of the things we've done really as a team is try to look at the ecosystem of our church and say, where might there be areas where that would be a good thing to happen? Where might there be people that it'd be really, really good to get in a room together, which is why we've done the Women's Connect events, which is why we've done the Men's Connect events, which is why we've done a Young Couples Connect, and we've got the Young Adult Ministry doing their connects. It's not just because we want something social to do, as just like Jason said with teenagers, the same's for adults. You can find social stuff everywhere. You don't have to be in a church for that. But what we want to do is say, hey, it seems like it'd be a really good idea to get these people in a room together for the hope that connection could happen. So I want to give you a little preview of something that, as a result of the survey, there was one of the survey questions that said, I think the way it was phrased was, I am satisfied with my current relationships at the church, or I feel like it was something to that effect. And there was about 60% of you that said that was true. And I see that and I'm like, oh, we can be higher than that. Like, we can do better than that, right? We could have more than 60% of us saying like, yeah, I feel like my relationships are in a good place. And so maybe before community, we need more connections to happen. We need more of you in a room for the opportunity to get to know each other and say, hey, I see you every week. Never gotten to know you. Maybe a friendship could happen here. Who knows? And so what we're working on later in the summer is doing like an Increase Your Circle Sunday, where it looks something like after service, not a huge drawn out big formal ordeal, but maybe 20 minutes in the big room right across the way, where we say, hey, we're going to have a couple questions on the board. We're going to have some appetizers, and we're going to challenge you to come in. Extroverts are going to love this. Introverts are going to hate me for this. But we're going to say, hey, you're going to come in, and your goal today, meet 3 people you've never met. Find 3 people you've never met. I see Cindy, my fellow extrovert, nodding along with me. She's going with this. Yes. So we'll basically just try to create environments where you could meet some people you've never met. And who knows what could happen for that. But we're excited to see what could happen for that. So those are some different ways that you can get involved with connections at SCF. Something else that I want to say when it comes to the survey results is there was a question about leadership and asking about if you wanted to lead something, would you know how to do that? And I felt like the score was relatively low. And so I want you to hear me say that if there's something that you want to see happening right now that's not happening, come talk to us about that. We love brainstorming with people. What could it look like for you in your current sphere of influence to be making a move in that area you want to make a move in? What could that look like? And so if you were one of the people that filled that out on the survey and you're like, I know what I would like to do, but I don't know how to do it, come talk to us. That's what we're here for. All right, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Anna. And Anna, Sarah's going to talk to you a little later about ways to get involved right here in our building. Anna's going to talk to you about ways to get involved in our city and in our world.
Thanks, Fred. I love that we're a church that loves to be outside our walls and in our community, so I get to tell you a little bit of what's happening in the outside area. We just did an underwear project where we collected underwear for Project 150, Undy Sunday, and we were able to collect 860 pair of underwear, which is amazing. We dropped them off last Thursday, and the whole day, Liz, the director of 150, kept texting me like, this is amazing. These are the best sizes we've ever gotten. These are the best kinds. How did your people know? But you guys did a great job, so I want to thank you for that. Coming up in July, we'll do a Nike gift card, and that will benefit Sparks High School for back to school, so be watching for that. And of course, our annual Serve Sunday will be the first Sunday in August 4th, where we don't even have church in the building. We mobilize lots of volunteers, go out to the schools, clean up, do whatever projects they have. So that's coming up. As far as benevolence goes, we have a new committee that has been running the benevolence, and the fund got a little bit low, and so we started something called Benevolence Sunday. First Sunday of every month, we put out a special offering box. It actually isn't too late. It's out there in the cafe if you make a little plug. But it helps pay bills or mortgages, power payments, things for people in the community and people of our own church. And so that's been a really encouragement to see that you've been giving to that fund, and that's great. Benevolence also supports our food pantry, which is growing by leaps and bounds. The clients have been increasing every week, and to the point where we needed a volunteer push also, just like kids. We did a volunteer push from the front, and amazingly, you guys stepped forward, and pantry is all full, and lots of help. I see some new faces that have been volunteering too, so thank you. Thanks for doing that. And then lastly, mission trips. Coming up this year in October, we'll have 2. We'll do Costa Rica October 5th through 12th. They're both house builds. We'll do Mexico on Nevada Day weekend. let me just say that even though there are house builds, if you don't have any house building skills, there's something for everybody. All the information for those is on the app. It's not quite solidified yet, but as soon as we get some airfare and we know the price, then we'll have an info meeting. But you can let us know you're interested right on the app.
Check, there it goes. All right. I had to turn it back off and turn it back on. Like I was my dad with a computer. So, anyway, let me say this. One of the things that I really value about SEF is that if you talk to anybody in the community, even people who are not connected, they know this church because of the amount of hours and the amount of resource that we pour into our community. It is one of the distinct things about this church, I think, in our community. Not that other churches don't do it and do it at a great level, but it really is not just something we do. I think it's kind of the DNA of this body and always has been, which is one of the reasons I love being here, is that we don't just take up space in our neighborhood. We're actually a part of it. And that's a whole different thing. And I love that so many of you invest in that in so many different ways, and so I want to encourage you to keep doing that. One of the things about benevolence right now is we're paying the same bills, but the same bills are more expensive now. I don't know if you've noticed that. Electricity is more expensive now, right? Rent is higher for people now, all of those kind of things, and so there is a multitude of need out there, and we know we can't meet every need, and we don't strive to do that, but we really want to be someone who says yes as often as we can in the right situations, recognizing that we also want to empower people, not just kind of keep them in places of suffering, right? And so you guys allow us to do that. I don't know if there's anybody in Washoe County who is more plugged in with the community than Anna. Like, Anna knows everybody in this community who is doing anything for anybody. And so if you're looking for a place to serve, that's the place to start. Go talk to Anna. There is never a lack of places to serve. And she is great at putting people in the right places. So Whitney and Anna do an incredible job. And if you've not been to any of those Connect events, the ladies have some weird ones. I'm just going to say it but let me tell you the story. That's weird from a male perspective. That's all I'm saying. So they had a line dancing Connect. But here's the cool thing. I don't think line dancing is cool, but the way it happened is cool. So the principal at Dilworth, we basically just called and said, "Can we use your gym?" And he immediately said, "Yes." Right? Why? Why did he say yes? Because we have a relationship. It wasn't even a question. Right? So that adds things to his plate, all those kind of things. But I say all that to say this. When you do the right things, it opens opportunities to do more right things. Right? And I'll be honest with you, line dance is not for me. But we had like 60, how many people?
Well, I wish you wouldn't have just said 60, because it was like 35.
Okay. I'm speaking in faith. And then, isn't that what pastors are supposed to do, double everything? So 35 is an impressive number for line dancing, I guess. So anyway, I say all that to say, one of the things Whitney talked about was, if you've been thinking, I'd like to see this, we want to equip you to live out what God has called you to do. And so one of the things that I think we try to do really well as a staff is if you come with an idea, it's not going to be a handoff where you're like, "I had this great idea, now you guys go do it." We're going to say, "That's a great idea, how can we help?" Right? And sometimes that ends the conversation, right? But for those that really, God's birthed something on their heart, it actually expands the conversation. And so if you've got something you'd like to see happen, we'd love to talk to you about it, right? We'd love to see how can we be a part of that. How can we equip you to really, man, like utilize that? So thanks to Anna and Whitney. All right. And next, our Connections pastor, Sarah Pierman.
Well, if you're a lady and you missed out on the first line dancing, we're absolutely going to have a second one at some point, so be looking for that. All right, so my name is Sarah Pierman. If you don't know me, my role here at SCF is I work in Connections as well as lead worship. And I oversee coordinators and volunteers of our welcome teams, and I assist also in communication, primarily Sunday morning communication, which also includes app support. So I just kind of wanted to give you a little framework of what I do. A lot of people, shockingly, still come up to me and they think that I just sing, like volunteer. They have no idea. So if you didn't know, that's a little painted picture of what I do throughout the week. But you primarily see me on stage on Sunday morning with a microphone, which is a lot easier for me to sing in front of people than talk in front of people. So I will be heavily looking at my notes, unlike the talkers that went before. So. All right, so looking back, I'm just going to talk about our welcome teams. That includes starting in our parking lots, to our front door greeters, to our coffee greeters. We all appreciate them. Our ushers and our cafe team. We have had 22 new volunteers in the last 9 months, which has been amazing. On our worship team, at our last open audition day, we welcomed 3 new singers and a keyboard player to the worship team. And several of these volunteers were encouraged to take this next step of joining Mission through their community group, a personal invitation, which we call shoulder tapping around here, a next step out of DS1, and Sunday morning invitations from stage. The worship team has also been leading worship for the SCF Kids, which has been such a blast. So we actually have, I think it's 8, oh, there's a picture right there. We actually have 8 members of our adult worship team that go from this stage over to the kids stage, and they're leading children in worship, and they're dancing and they're singing, and it's so amazing to see the little kids just light up. They know the songs, they know the moves, and it's very interesting because there is one kid that I can just picture, and when we first started, he was the kid that crossed his arms, kept underneath his hat, not engaged, and now he's asking if he can be a student leader, which we call them. We invite them up on stage. And I don't know if you've ever seen how they sit over there, but they sit in kind of grade sections. And he's in the 5th grade section. And so he wants to lead his group. And he's doing the moves. I had to kind of say, hey, you got to stick with the moves we're doing. But he did it the next week. He did the moves. And it's just so great to see these little kids light up and want to be in that leadership role. So we're really building relationships over there and getting them excited about that. One of the things I want to talk about is we scored relatively high on communication health during the survey. This was encouraging because we had some major communication changes in the last couple of years as we moved to our app and such, and I talked about that at the last forward. And those types of changes on a large scale come with growing pains, adaptability, refining, the buy-in, and everything that comes with that. And you all have done so well, and we appreciate your patience and your feedback and your questions. And all that helps us improve communication all around. So one of the things from this survey was, do you agree communication from your church is clear? And 68% strongly agreed, and 29% agreed. And so we're doing well. But it also shows that we have room for improvement, and so I'm going to talk about that in just a little bit. So looking forward, worship team auditions are happening next Sunday. We have 1 person signed up. Okay. Now, when I talk about worship team auditions, we would actually do those throughout the year. If anyone was interested, we would find a time, go through the process. I call these what do I call them? Open auditions, where we have a day specific to people coming in, wanting to join the worship team. They're going to try out and go through the process. So that's happening next Sunday. I share that with you because we really need people. We need piano players, bass players, guitarists, drummers, and singers. So if you read between the lines there, we need everything. So if you know of somebody here at the church that plays an instrument or that sings, I would encourage you to heavily encourage them to connect with me, and I can talk about what the audition process is. Or if you yourself play an instrument or sing, I'd love to have that conversation with you. It's really not as rigorous of a process as one might think. I know people hear the word audition and kind of panic, but I try to be really nice about it. So, I wanted to mention this at the beginning. All these other departments got like a support buddy from their team up here, and I didn't. But mine's in the back. Mike Zabella, he's running all of our sound tonight. I work closely with Mike. Yep. And so we're also looking for volunteers for our production side. So if you're more of like, hey, I'm really a behind the scenes kind of person, we have a spot for you. And one thing that Mike does really well, and he's really upped his game in the last 2 years with this, just intentionality of training volunteers, and not just like training in one role, but training in multiple roles, because you have those Sundays where somebody calls out and we're like, oh, what are we going to do? Well, now he can move somebody from this camera to that camera because they know how to do multiple things. So if you're interested in positions like light board, camera, switcher, slide operator, we'd love to talk to you. So you can email us, or you can go to the app and click the serve button, and there's a whole list of things right there. Eli talked a lot about his passion for youth and building a worship team within that. And I am just, I'm going to say proud. He is one of our drummers, and his intentionality with these kids is something I wish I had. And I say that because as the worship leader, you would think that that might be something under my role, but he's doing it, and he's passionate, and he's working on these relationships, and I'm like in the back seat going, yes, you're on to something. So I'm playing much more of a supportive backseat role in that, but he's on the right track, and I'm so proud of that. So one of the things that we're really focusing on is building bridges, and that's between SCF kids, SCF youth, and then into adulthood. And so little ways that we're starting to do that is through leading worship in the kids ministry, and Eli working with the youth, and just building those relationships so that when they do grow onto the next stage, they know people, they're more comfortable, they have trusting relationships there. And then we have communication expanding this next year. You guys excited about that? We always got something new for you. We're going to be partnering with a company called Studio C, and I'm really looking forward to this expansion as it comes with the ability to customize communication in the congregation. I'm not going to dive into all the details because we just started that process with Studio C, and Jason's going to speak into that a little bit more when he comes up here. But that is something that I'm really looking forward to, and you guys have done so well with the last communication change-up that I have no doubt it's going to be awesome for you guys, and you guys will be able to jump right in on that. I think that's it. Thank you.
It's one of the really cool things about our staff here is that the vast majority of them have either been here 20 plus years or they grew up here, right? I think Whitney and I are about the only ones that came from the outside, honestly. And so that's a huge blessing. I don't know if you know how unique that is in a church. It's incredibly unique. And so that's a huge blessing. And it's a testament to the long-term health of SCF. and how many people have invested in these lives that they're now leading in incredible ways. And so what an incredible thing that is. All right. We've heard from student ministries, Next Gen. We've heard from Community Life. We've heard from Connections. And now the fun guy. The guy who gets to talk about all the fun stuff. John Klippenstein, who is our executive pastor. And if you don't know what executive pastor is, let me know. John's still trying to figure it out too. None of this would happen without John. John oversees our staff for the most part day to day. He oversees not only this building, but some of you may not know, we own this mall. SCF owns this entire mall. So he communicates with the company that takes care of our tenants, all those kind of things, which he's going to talk a little bit about the tenants in the mall and how that has been an incredible thing that God has moved in the last 2 or 3 years to bring health to the mall side for us. But John does an incredible job and makes my job, lets me do what I am good at and what I'm passionate about, and thankfully he's passionate about things that I'm not passionate about, and vice versa, right? He does the books, which is what he should do, because he doesn't want to teach from what I know. I tried to get him to occasionally. And so I love that God puts people in the right places, that he knows what we should be doing, and he gives us the opportunity to do that. And so John's going to talk about budget, all those kind of things. If you have questions, he's the one to ask. All right, does that make sense? Cool. All right, John, come on up.
Well, I'm going to start with talking about staff. Just Jason said I can make his job easy. You just heard the staff. They make my job easy. There's a couple others that I need to talk about. You heard from several of them already. Alan Jackson just started with us 3 months ago this week. Alan, he took over the... Yep. He's our new facilities manager. Lee Best retired back at the end of March after about 9 years here or so. So Alan has been part of SCF for a few years, and the way he found out about the job, I was asking him if he knew anybody that would want to apply for the job. Well, Alan did. So God worked it all out in his life, and it worked out good. I want to mention Alex Riley. Is she here? Nope. She might be cleaning. Well, Alex really, she does all the accounting and HR. So if any of you are involved in that in your life, you know how important that is for an organization. Not only the accounting to make sure it's all right, so I get some great numbers and stuff, but the HR with everything out there. So she makes my job really easy. And she helps me with staff and everything else. And then we have 3 part-time custodians. I think they're all in the building. Tammy, Tay, and Tom. Are you guys around here anywhere? I see Tom back there. So for the amount of use we have in the building, we have 3 part-time custodians that work a total of 45 hours in the building. So they get a lot done in a very short amount of time because we use the building all the time. I think you guys know that. And so I want to shout out to them. Tammy back there, she just walked in. She's our front desk, the voice of SCF kind of, but she does so much more. She manages the custodians on a day-to-day basis. She orders supplies. She gets to interact with people that come in the building, and sometimes those interactions are, let's just say, a little bit stressful. Some of you, Cindy's shaking her head yes because she volunteers there. So I just want to give out a shout out to those staff members along with the ones you just heard that truly make my role enjoyable and in many ways pretty simple at times because we don't have a lot of chaos going on. So, and I really try to get involved every day with every staff member in some way, whether it's about work or it's about personal life stuff. So, and I manage by basically walking around and listening in on people. I really do. I'll stand in a doorway and listen in to see how people are interacting with each other, to see what they're talking about. I join some meetings at times just so I can get a feel for what's going on, and it's really exciting. The last 1 or 2 years, some of the teams we've formed and the meetings they have and what happens, and it's really cool to see that happening without me managing the whole process, and that's what's really cool. So I just want to mention the rest of the staff because, again, we always see Jason up there, usually Sarah, and Winnie's up there a lot too, but we have I think we have 14 total staff members, so and they really get everything done. I'll talk about the mall a little bit. Jason just mentioned the mall. We have 14 tenant spaces, and they're all full right now, which is phenomenal. We just had an open space last year. The Christian bookstore post office closed down because the owner passed away. It took us a while to go through that process, and we had to do a lot of work on it, and then we got to rent it out to another nonprofit. So right now, out of 14 tenants, 6 are nonprofit, which is, for some of you, 6, 7, 8 years ago, the board was wondering, do we want to own the mall? And they prayed and fasted for a period of time, and they said, yes, we want to stay here. And since then, God has opened the door. So we have Habitats, a nonprofit, faith-based. There's a Spanish-speaking church down there, faith-based. We've got Good Shepherd's Clothes Closet, one of our local partners, faith-based. We've got Esther's Closet, another faith-based organization. We have Faith in Action has been at the very end for about 4 or 5 years now. And our brand new one came in. It's called Cancer Community Clubhouse. So it's an organization that supports people with cancer, going through cancer, support groups, exercise groups. So 6 out of 14, which is phenomenal. I think, if I could write the perfect script, we'd have all of them nonprofit. But we're getting there. We are getting there. And all of our tenants are strong. They all have paid their bills on time. There were several years when I first started that was tough. We were bleeding money on that side. But now our mall is doing so well that they pay for 2/3 of our mortgage payment, which currently is $29,000 a month, so big mortgage payment, and then they pay for a part of mine and Alan's salary since we spend time working on that. So the mall, probably 8 years ago, it was an albatross. It was that weight that we didn't want, and now without the mall, SCF would look different internally. So the mall is actually, like some of you, if you have rentals, they're paying the mortgage payment. They're paying enough of their mortgage payment that we can do more ministry here. So shop at the mall. If you want to support SCF and support 89431 zip code, shop at the mall. Go to Shelley's. You're going to pay a couple bucks more. Shop there anyway. Go get a haircut from Bill and James and Scott over there. So again, supporting them not only helps them, it helps us too. So, did Mike, hold on a second on that slide. Moving forward, this year, every 5 years, we have to refinance our mortgage note. So 5 years ago, we all know that the interest rates were a little bit lower than they are now. So it looks like this year we're going to have to do our new mortgage, and it's going to be moved from 4.75% to 7.5%. So immediately, my mind, when I first found out, I'm saying, how are we going to afford that? Because, but in a weird way, how do I say this? In a weird way, our financial situation helped us. Our lender, they have a certain formula that they want you to do. You need 1.5 times your mortgage rate, your mortgage monthly for your net profit. And we own them all, so we get money from them. And we didn't meet that. So instead of a 15-year note, we're going to have to refinance to a 25-year note, which lowered the monthly payments quite a bit. But we all know the longer you pay interest, or mortgage, you pay more interest. So I think our tactic, Jason and I came up with, I think we're going to take the lower monthly payments, but we're going to add money every month. We can probably do it and keep it at a 15-year term and save over $1 million in interest if, again, finances stay like it is. So that's, I think, our strategy right now. But again, every 5 years, it's the same thing, waiting. And I'm going to shop out the note, but our lender said if we were to come to them right now as a new customer, they wouldn't even look at us. Our finances in 21 and 22 were based on COVID, other things. Last year we looked much better, but they take a 3-year average. So I think in 2 years from now, we're going to be really good. In the next 5 years from now, we'll be really good. So hopefully we'll maybe get it down back to a 15-year note, even 10-year note. I'm hoping we can get this thing paid off for. So, because $30,000 a month is a lot per year that we could use for ministry. We could do other things with. So anyway, so that's looking a little bit forward. Go ahead, Mike, if you want to put that slide up, if you can. So we're just finished our 11 months of our current budget year. You see up there, current budget's $1.3 million. After 11 months, our giving is $30,000 less than budgeted, which is about an average week's about $25,000. So we're about a week behind. Expenses are $8,000 above budget. We had some one-offs, a new AC unit, and some other stuff that was not expected. So what that means is we spent $38,000 more dollars than was brought in through May. Concerning, but not hugely. I'm not concerned about that a lot. We have about 8 to 10 weeks in cash at any one time, so which is about $250,000 in cash. So, and we have one more month to make up that $30,000. So hint, hint. So anyway, I just wanted to say that our finances have been very good. I mean, we go through periods where the first 6 months of the year is usually our better giving. Our July through December. December is our biggest month always. People still give a ton of money in the month of December. So, and then January, February, March are pretty low at times. It just, whatever, Christmas, whatever. And then we start picking up a little bit. So I'm hoping we finish this budget year strong. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about our upcoming budget. A little bit about the process really quickly. I start the budget process in March a little bit. I need to get the budget to the Board of Elders in early June, so they'll be getting a copy of the budget this week, and then we'll be meeting the week after this, and they'll be voting on it. So the process is I start the process. April 1st, I give all the teams their budget sheets. So then they have the month of April to get them back to me. I compile this big number, and then I'll go back to them and we'll talk. Why do you want this? What are you doing here? What can I do here? So this year, right now, I'm going to present a budget right about $1.35 million. I don't want to get into a lot of specifics because I haven't shared it with the board yet. I don't want, some of that stuff there. So I will say a couple things we're heavily investing in this year is back to the youth and the kids. We've over doubled the youth budget. We weren't spending hardly anything on youth. We over doubled it, I think 120%. And then in SCF Kids, Sally's department, I think we budgeted 50% more. So we're really putting some finances back into the areas of growth that we see happening. And in fact, I went back to them and said, hey, what else do you guys want to do? Let's go spend a little bit more money, which you can tell staff I usually never say that. So, but the staff that I've got, I get to work with, they do such a great job managing finances. Our whole culture at SCF has been one on spend what you need when you need it. Not don't go out early and buy a whole bunch of stuff that you might need. We wait and we try to get things done. So that's a testament to way before I came on staff. That's just the mindset of SCF over all these years. Was it 30? How many years now? 1990? Sally knows. She's been here since then. Since 1990. So this will be 34 years this September. SCF will celebrate its 34th anniversary as a church. So anyway, yeah. And I think that's really all I've got. I know there are some questions up here. there was a question about what is the budget breakdown. I don't know what that really meant. Like I said, I can't share a lot about the new budget yet because I don't think it's right for me to do that in this setting before the board gets a chance to see it. So, but I did mention a little bit, we're investing heavily in the youth and the kids department. So I think Jason's next.
I know this is a spot where people may have questions that you didn't submit, and so I don't want to like cut that off. I want to give people the opportunity to ask questions. I think in terms of budget breakdown, I don't know how much most of you know about how churches operate and what an average budget looks like in terms of how percentages of expenditures are broken down, all that kind of stuff. I think this new budget, we end up somewhere around 55% of the budget goes toward staffing, right? So that's 14 people that we employ. So if you think about that, if the budget's 1.35, about 55% of that is what, 670,000 or so, 680,000. That includes our employee's salary, as well as insurance, our cost, payroll tax, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So if you think about that, that's basically 11 full-time employees, 3 part-time employees, into about $670,000. So nobody's getting rich, right? But none of us went into this for that, right? So that's kind of where we are in terms of percentage on that. John already talked about the mortgage every month right now is about $29,000 a year. That's on a $3.3 million
2.7
note, right? This new one's at 2.7. And some of what John mentioned earlier, they wanted to expand from a 15-year to a 25-year. The payment at
7.5% was 21,000.
Was 21,000. So if you think about that, that's about 8,000 less than we're paying right now, which means that we could take 5,000 every month, add it straight towards principal, which takes us back to a 15-year note. Does that make sense? And we're still saving about $4,000 a month in terms of what we were paying towards the mortgage, right? So in some ways, man, God's been a little bit gracious in that whole refinancing process. And like John said, the ability to take that extra $5,000 or so every month paid towards principal actually saves us about $1 million over the course of the loan in interest payments. And while saving a little bit of money every month, honestly. So yeah, that's kind of where we are. But in terms of percentage breakdown, that's kind of what it looks like. I will say, I think last year we gave 11% of our total income away. So about 11% or so we gave to either local agencies, benevolence, global partners. And one of the things that, I don't know if we take pride in this, but we're very...
Exactly right, yeah, 11.
But we actually do take some pride in this. That through COVID and through all of the challenges financially that we've seen the last 3 or 4 years, we have not reduced support of any of our partners. We've not dropped any of them. And I can tell you, most churches in the Valley did exactly that. That's not to say we were right and they were wrong, any of that. But as a staff and as a board, we decided we did not want to take away from those partners, whether they be local or global, for the sake of other things. And I feel like God's been faithful in that. That's something that we have always kind of held on to, is that we want to at least be a church that gives 10% or more away, right? That's had its costs. You guys know between last year's forward and this one, we laid off 2 employees, right? That's part of a hard decision we had to make, right? That's not an easy decision to make, but we felt like it was the right way to go. And to stay with some of the things that we felt like were very, very important, which those employees were very important. So anyway, any questions for John or for the budgeting process, any of that? Yes, ma'am.
So why do we have to refinance, if you will, every 5 years, and we're taking out a 15, 25-year note? That doesn't make sense.
That's the way the commercial real estate market works every 5 years, because I think they really want you to they really want, if the interest rates go up, they're going to make more money in the long run. So every 5 years since I've started this is my 14th year. So this is my third one, I think, to 2 or 3. Yeah. So every 5 years they come up. Last time we did this 5 years ago, our interest rate dropped because 10 years ago, they were higher than they were 5 years ago. So we go through this cycle. And it costs us about probably $35,000 in cash to do the deal too, on top of the more money. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's just the way it is.
And to be honest with you, one of the things we didn't talk about a little bit is when they came back this time, both the options they gave us were 25-year notes instead of 15. But one of them allowed us to not pay any cost at transaction.
Yeah.
So it actually saves us about $35,000 or $40,000 in terms of closing cost, all those kind of transaction fees, and still lower our payment while still getting to 15 years in terms of the note, which is where we would have been anyway, if we decide to kind of move that $5,000 there in addition to the mortgage payment.
And that $5,000, what that allows me to do as a budget year goes on, if we're not hitting our numbers, that's always a number, always a check that we don't have to write that month. You know, it's kind of a thing in the pocket that I can take away from the budget and save $5,000 a month. I don't want to do that, but that's one of the things I could do to lower the budget significantly. It's 8 months. I think we refinance in November, so we'll have 8 months of that $5,000 extra. $40,000 of our budget is that number. So if we're not doing really well, I can always say, let's not do it this month. Let's, again, those are some of the things that we can do, just like we probably all do in our household budgets at times.
I will say, like, one of the things that we do try to follow is trends in terms of giving, not just giving, but all aspects of church life in America and how we're comparing to other churches, all that kind of stuff. And there are agencies that, distribute that information, collect it, all that kind of stuff. And so one of the ones that we saw in the last month is nationwide, giving to churches in the last year is down 15%. So it's not just an anomaly for us. Other people are dealing with it. And there are always outliers where, that's not happening for sure. But it's good to know, it's always good to know trending. It's always good to know kind of why things are happening. But I think, like John said, in light of it, are we a little bit under budget right now? Yeah. But like he said, you can solve that in the next month. Right? Or if you just want to write the check for the whole thing, it's 2.7. Right? But we really believe that one of the things that we'll talk a little bit about is in terms of attendance. Attendance was up about, what was that number, John?
7%.
So 7% overall the
8%,
last
yeah.
year. So seeing decent growth, which 7% is not bad for a church, really. And so now one of the things that happens is when new people come to faith, they don't start giving right away. Like if most of your church is new believers, a lot of them are not giving, right? Because they didn't grow up in that. They don't understand it all. And so it does take a little bit of a lag sometimes, I think, which is, if you were here this morning, I talked a little bit about it, right? I don't like to talk about that much, but we do have a responsibility to communicate, like, what does it mean to be generous? What do the scriptures hold us to? All those kind of things. So I say all that to say, if you're here tonight and maybe giving's not been part of your pattern, think about it. Pray about it, right? Or just do it, right? And I don't know what number you need to be at, any of those kind of things, but I will say that we, as a staff, work really, really hard to make sure that the money that we spend is spent on the right things in the right ways, right? This is not a church that blows through money on flashy, and we're not in an arms race with other churches, right? There's a lot of people building a lot of buildings and doing a lot of campaigns. That's not what we're going to be. We're going to put this money right back in our neighborhood, in our community, and people. That's what we're going to be about. And so I'm a huge believer that God honors that. So, any questions? Yes, ma'am. We have a 2 limit, so it's like closing time. You know what I mean? Like you can only get 2. That's fair. That's fair. That's fair. Don used all that. That's the whole mall. So the whole note, is it?
Yeah.
I'm right?
The whole mortgage notes for the
I was
whole
pretty sure
mall.
I was right,
Yeah.
but you know.
That 1.35 million is just for the church budget. Yeah, we get about $27,000 to $30,000 in income on the mall side from our 14 tenants. So we pull a significant amount, about $20,000 a month from that over to help us. We still need to keep cash over there. We have about $150,000 in cash on the mall side, which is really SCF's money. I could pull it over at any one time and spend it, but not real smart at times when I have to put a new AC unit for 25 grand in some place over there, like we did 4 months ago. So we have about 150,000. That's a decent number. I wish it was a little bit higher. So I'm trying to work on ways to make sure we can keep more money on the mall side, but yet have SCF function right also. So when our mall can pay 2/3 of our mortgage, that really helps. I mean, when I first started, they were paying $4,000 a month out of $32,000. So SCF was picking up the majority for so many years, and we slowly turned the corner, and now they are doing like what most rentals should do to the owners, pay us back.
To your question, the mortgage payment, that $29,000, the note at 3.3, which is now at 2.7, that's for the entire.
Yeah.
That's not just our building. So when John says that, 8 years ago, $32,000 mortgage payment, SCF was paying $28,000 of it. That means we were carrying basically the payment for the whole mall, right? Which is not, I don't know if you have rental properties, but that's not exactly how you want to operate, right? Like, it's generous, I guess. But it's probably not long-term sustainable. And so that's a huge, some of you understand this more because you've been here longer and you've been through the challenges of the mall. That we have full tenancy, that they're all up to date on their payments, that 2 or 3 years ago, our commercial manager went through and adjusted the CAMS fees to make them more reasonable in terms of what they should be paying. So there's been a lot of movement the last 3 or 4 years on that, and a lot of that was through John and through our management company that we utilize that does a lot of that for us. So if you think about it, a lot of churches have, if churches have daycares, all those kind of things, like why do they have those? Is it out of the good of their heart? They're helping to pay for their ministry. We don't have a daycare. What do we have? A mall.
I'll take the mall any day. I don't want a daycare.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So,
One more question.
Somebody, sure. No worries.
Out of curiosity, do you give a discount to the nonprofits?
There's not a set discount, but I work personally with each one to see what they can afford, what they really can afford, because we need to make money on the mall, the bottom line. But I'm not going to say no over $200 or $300 a month. I really not, because I think in the long run, God's going to work it out for us. And if we can help our zip code, our community, by having a cancer community clubhouse come in and pay maybe $200 or $300 less than, our market rate's way lower where we're at and stuff. Yeah. So I work with each one, and I get a chance to kind of determine that amount with our property manager. He asked me, what do you want to get? I said, well, what's the going rate? And then we kind of work on that. So, eventually I'd like to have all nonprofits. We do need people paying good money here too, obviously. Habitat does. Habitat's our biggest tenant. They pay a significant amount every month, and they're a great tenant too. They got 30,000 square feet of our 60,000 rental space. So.
And I would say also, like, as much as we value like it being a nonprofit space, as much as we can maintain that, I also love the fact that we have a Shelley's. And it's been here for a long time. I love that we have the barber shop, and you got Bill who comes to SCF, and he did a good job. Me too. He only charges John half. Yeah. I love the fact that our mall has things in it that benefit our neighbors. Like, that's what this should be, right? It should be a valuable piece of our neighborhood, and I think it is. And some of that's nonprofit, some of it's for-profit, and that's fine. But I love the fact that we have great relationships with our tenants right now. People don't feel like we've taken advantage of them in any sense. They feel like they're fairly treated and that we're responsive to them. And so that's really about all you can ask, I think, is to have good relationships with the tenants and through the tenants with the neighborhood. And so, yep. Second,
No, we don't
No, we
anymore.
don't. That got sold. Yeah. Dwayne said absolutely not.
That was about four years ago.
That got sold a good while ago.
And if you guys need gas, go over there again. Helps them out.
Help them out.
They're doing pretty good. They're not doing great over there. Great ownership. The guy's name's AJ. Who lives in Sacramento area. Comes up, but really good guy. So anyway, yeah. If you need gas after church, go over there. Go right over there. They're going to plan on putting a store in where the old car wash building is there. They're going to renovate or tear down or start something new this year. So they've got some big plans for it. So anyway.
And that's a good thing for us. It's a good thing to have people through this mall. It's a good thing that Dutch Brothers moved in. And people are coming down Greenbrae, right? Even though it's annoying. I like to have traffic sitting out in Greenbrae, right? So I think one of the beautiful things about it is there are new things happening in this neighborhood, and healthy things happening, and we get to be a part of that, right? Not just observe it, but be a part of it. That's pretty cool. So, anybody else? Second question.
How much is our power bill? $3,500 a month average. Yeah, but the groups we have a lot of groups that use our building. We have the Northern Nevada Food Bank SNAPS program has offices here, and I charge them rent. We have other groups that pay us rent, so I get about $24,000 back from the rental of this building inside.
Yearly.
Yearly.
Not monthly.
Yearly. That pays of the $38,000 for the power bill. So that's how I do the budget. I offset it that way. So. And yeah, the power went crazy last year. I think it's going down this year for some reason, or I don't know, whatever. But I can't keep track. But we really pay a lot of attention to that with lights and everything we do in here. I can change temperatures on my phone for any room, so we have meetings or not have meetings, and all that kind of fun stuff. So yeah, it's one of our probably top 5 line items or 6 is the power bill.
Well, I think you guys, if you were here on a Sunday a couple of months ago or a couple of weeks ago, I think we mentioned this. We have 2,000 people a week through the building of all various support, recovery. About 400 to 500 of those are here on a Sunday. That means we have 1,500 people those other days, right? This building gets used, and it should, right? There's nothing worse than driving by a church building that's used one time a week. Like, that's ridiculous to me, right? And so that is a part of it. And like John said, we do recover a good bit of that from some people who utilize the building and who are generous enough to give us a little money here and there. So, somebody else had a question, I thought. Yes, ma'am.
No,
that's not on our property.
That's on our property.
So
I wish, because they could pay our whole mortgage.
Yeah, I was about to say.
But
if they would just give us an hour out of one of their days, we'd probably be all right.
No, so our property ends at the end of this long building here, the welfare office building, the white building. That's a different mall. It's Greenbrae West. We're Greenbrae East. It was probably one big mall way back in the day when they built it all. But so I think Dutch Brothers is its own property within that thing. So yeah, I wish it was ours, but no.
Yeah. Saskia?
Any plans to partner with Sierra Nevada Teen Ranch anytime in the future financially?
Yeah, so John and I were out there 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So we went out, and Anna went with us, and did a tour with Marvin and with Jan. And so, we're in the process of really, studying. But I think our hope is to be able to do that. Absolutely. So I want to say this the right way, right? When you're starting a nonprofit, especially dealing with kids, there are some state requirements and outside requirements that are a little bit necessary. So we're just trying to do our due diligence on that side, if that makes sense. But our hope is to be able to support them at a good level. And so, this is their home church. We want to be able to do that. And so we also have to do our due diligence on our side, right? Like, so we're in the process of that, but our hope is absolutely yes.
One more back there. Shirley?
Yeah, all that new fund, benevolence fund.
Yes.
Is that only for people in the church's zip code?
No, actually, to be honest, I'm looking at Anna, 80% probably goes to people that don't have a connection here at SCF, actually. So people would just walk in the door. Oh, I heard from a friend that you guys helped them with a power bill last year or something. So word of mouth in those areas. So we want to give priority to the people that are part of SCF. When we have the funds, that's why we had to kind of slow it down a bit because we were running out of funds. So most of our funding in that goes outside of people that have a deep connection here.
And I will say we have some pretty clear parameters about who we give benevolence to. Like, we're not handing cash out to anybody. Like, there's some really specific parameters in terms of what it's available for, rent, power bills, those kind of things. And people do have to do some legwork to get it, right? It's not just, in fact, we tell people it's a 7-day process generally, right? It's not you walk in and get a check today. There's a process involved, and there are legal guidelines and tax guidelines that we have to operate under. And so it's not an emergency fund, but a lot of it does go to people who don't attend SCF, right? As I think it probably should at some level, right? That we want to be a good presence in our community. And if you've ever worked in a church, you know how I call it the street network, right? Like once somebody finds out that you'll help them with something, 18 other people found out, right? That there's some connections in those places for sure. So, anybody else for John? Thanks, John. All right. Well, I'm going to try to be really brief. Absolutely. That's what every good pastor says. Just before they talk forever. So this has really been a good year. As we've talked about, man, we've seen quite a few new families who've shown up and become part of what God is doing here at SCF and all those kind of things. One of the things I do want to touch on briefly is something that Sarah mentioned in terms of communication. She mentioned a new platform that we are going to be utilizing called Studio C. What that will actually show up for you is it'll just show up on your SCF app, right? And in the survey, one of the things that we heard from the people who responded, and by the way, we had 265 people respond, which is awesome, right? So thanks for taking the time to do that. We're still kind of processing through some of that, but you heard all of the areas kind of talk about some of the direction they've taken from that survey, areas that we feel like we can step into that we're starting to already move in. This is another one, right? Because one of the questions that was asked was, do we do as a church helping people kind of move forward in their own spiritual formation, right? So I think about 84% of people responded positively, right? Which means that that's not horrible. But it also means that we have some opportunities to maybe help clarify what does it look like to have a spiritual or a discipleship pathway, right? What are markers along the way of growing as a disciple of Jesus that are important? Now, we can't define all of them, and they're not always going to move in the same sequence for everybody, right? But one of the ways we wanted to do that was to make it somewhat visible for people. What are some things that, man, a disciple of Jesus does consistently? And am I doing those? Does that make sense? And I don't know about you, but for me, a lot of times I need a visual. I need to be able to look at stuff and go, did I do this? Did I not do this? Right? Not in terms of checklist stuff, but just is this a marker of my life? And so one of the things that Studio C allows us to do is to define some discipleship markers, right? And we've got those up. So we're starting with these 5, right? So when we kind of launch this platform, which will probably be October or so, right? It'll just show up on your app, the SCF app, basically. And what you'll see is you will see these kind of 5 markers, right? And if you think about it, these are things that when we talk about next steps, these are our next steps, right? And so you've got baptism, you've got giving or generosity. I actually think we'll use, did we say giving or did we say generosity? Giving? Okay. They both start with G, all right? Like Georgia. Yeah. Don't make me say bad things here. Community life, which for us is, are you actively involved in a community, right? In a community group. Serving, which we've talked a lot about. Are you serving on a team, right? And then lastly, leading. One of the things that you heard Whitney talk a little bit about was one of the indicators on the survey was that people sometimes felt like they didn't know how to get involved in leadership. And so we're going to give some more specific guideways and pathways towards that at different levels. But the cool thing about this is it's really based on information that we already have. So we operate under a kind of software platform called CCB, which tracks our giving, it tracks like small group attendance, all that kind of stuff. So really what this does is it just takes what's already being kind of recorded, if you will, and it just populates these things to see where you kind of are in terms of these discipleship markers, if that makes sense. So if you've been baptized, it'll populate. It'll show you've been baptized, and the only person looking at it is you, right? It's not like we're going to stop you on the way in the church and be like, let me see those 5. But like I said, sometimes I need something to look at and go, hey, where's my next step? Where's my next area of growth, right? And so for us, we're really excited about this. We think it's going to give, especially people who are newer followers of Jesus, it's going to give them a real sense of what are some way markers for me, and how can I know that I'm living these things out, right? The second part of it that I'm really excited about is what Sarah talked about, and that is the ability to communicate very narrowly. How many of you get the email blast? How many of you read it? You're better than me. Right? I cannot stand emails, right? Especially like blast emails where everybody gets them, you know what I mean? So let me ask you a question. When you communicate with the people closest to you, how do you communicate generally? Face to face? All right, that's the Jesus answer. That's good. I text. Have you noticed that one of the things we don't do a lot is text? You don't get text from us. Why? Because the platform we utilized, not only did we have to have your number, we had to get your carrier. And we're like, who's going to, we don't want to fill that out, and you don't want to give it to us. But we do want to have the ability to communicate specifically to people we need to communicate to. So if we have a baptism coming out, I don't want to send an email to people who've already been baptized. I want to be able to send a direct communication to people who may be looking to be baptized. When we're talking about community groups, I don't want to send it to people who are already in community groups and say, why don't you sign up for a community group? But it would be really cool to be able to send it to people who are not in community groups. And we're not talking about overwhelming you with information. We're not talking about spamming you and any of those things. It's just about, again, being able to communicate very clearly and very efficiently, if that makes sense. And if we can utilize technology in a way that's not intrusive but is functional, I think that's actually a good thing. Now the cool thing about it is if you're listening to that right now and you're like, man, you're not getting into my phone, you don't have to be part of that, right? This is something that serves people that want it to serve them, if that makes sense. But we are excited about the ability to help people track, how am I doing as a disciple of Jesus? Am I taking steps in this? And we're also very excited to be able to say, hey, listen, we want to communicate directly to people who need to take these next steps, right? Without giving it to everybody. And so that's a big thing that I'm excited about. I think it's going to be really, really good. And to be honest with you, like they said, every time you kind of increase your communication scope a little bit, there are challenges to it, right? We're going to learn along the way. And so be gracious with us on that. But we're going to do our best to make sure that we have it really well done before we put it in your hands. Does that make sense? We're going to beta it within our staff and our board for at least a month or so to make sure that we kind of, number one, it's what we want it to be, and secondly, that we at least have an idea what it looks like, right? And so when we do roll it out, for those of you who are worried, we will have people in the lobby who you can go and hand them your phone if you want to, and they can make sure you get it, all right? So if the navigation piece is a problem, we'll help with that, all right? So we've kept you a little bit longer than I wanted to already. Thanks, Don. But I do, if you have any questions, guys, I'm excited about what God is doing here. I will tell you next year for our teaching series, we're going to do a read-through of the Old Testament all year long. So if you like read-throughs, you'll love it. If you don't, you'll hate it. I always think it's good that as a church, we should put Scripture first. Right? And I know the Old Testament is not nearly as easy to read as the New Testament, but I'm also a huge believer you can't fully understand the New Testament unless you understand the Old Testament. 70% of the New Testament comes from the Old. There's a reason. So I'm excited to read through Lamentations and Numbers. I'm not really, but we'll do it together, and it'll be better that way, right? So I'm excited about that. One of the other things that I'm working on right now that I'm really excited about is we are working off some of the historical creeds, some of the historical catechisms, so the Westminster and the Heidelberg, which have existed for a long time. Anybody know what catechism is? Basically like training. Like training in who God is. So I'm really working to put together a year-long catechism that anybody who really wants to dive deeply into who God is, deep spiritual formation, and I don't mean like every week, but probably once a month for 12 months, we'll get together and sit down, and there'll be a good bit of follow-up during the month that you'll have to do. So it's not for everybody, but I'm a huge believer that if people really want to go deeply in their faith, we should give them opportunities and equip them for that. And so I'm excited about not only the teaching series. I think it's going to be I love the Old Testament. I love exposing people to the Old Testament because I think so many people are afraid of it, right? They don't really understand it. I love being able to help people understand that. And secondly, I'm really excited about bringing the idea of a catechesis into a place where it doesn't really exist, right? Because I think a catechesis, yes, except not, right? So it's just the process that is catechism. Does that make sense? Like catechism is the thing, catechesis is the process. So if you've been thinking, man, I'd really love to do some in-depth study of historical Christianity, some of the historical creeds and where they come from, and how that can benefit my life, I'm excited to lead that and to see some people be part of it. So that'll be coming up. All right? I've got a lot more I could say, but I'm not going to. Right? Because I want to get you guys out of here. Let me close with this, and I'll open for any questions if you have those. But please hear this. I try to say this as many Sundays as I can think about it. But please know that, man, we as a staff, we love you. We love you. We're thankful for you. I love being here. I love this body, as do everybody on our staff. I know that because I watch the way they work for you and the way they serve you. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for your faithfulness. I believe with all of my heart the best days are in front of us. Not because of us, but because God is in front of us. And He's doing good things. I don't know exactly what those look like, but I know it's going to be good. And so I lean to that. And I hope you will as well. So thank you for allowing us to do this. Thank you for the opportunity I have to do what I do. It is the privilege of my life to be able to serve you. And so thank you for that. With that, any questions before we get out of here? Deb? Yes. We still, it's, the way that it's been distributed to us is very cumbersome in terms of kind of processing through. And so we've had it for about a month now. What I asked for these guys was to just have 2 or 3 action items out of that. You heard a little bit of that tonight. But yeah, I think overall we fared pretty well in it. We're doing some things really, really well. I think part of it also revealed that some of the things we're doing well, not everybody understands, right? But yeah, we'll be talking more about that as we move forward. And whether we actually talk about it specifically, you'll see things originating out of it. So, absolutely. Saskia?
Will a catechism class be on the app? I mean, to know when it starts?
Yes. So we'll probably announce that in the fall. Start announcing it in the fall, so that we have plenty of time for people to kind of ask questions about it, all those kind of things, to see if it's for them. Because the goal would be to start in January, run through December, and then re-up every year. Right? So 12 months long, but we would be able to, and the hope is I would kind of lead first year, but then some of the people who went through the first year would help lead the second year. Right? So the goal is to really not just me be the leader of that, but it's really to grow leadership in that way, in a way that people feel really comfortable stepping in and leading as well. So, absolutely. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
I just want to confirm that you're going to pick up theology for everyone again in the fall.
Yeah, so I need some suggestions. So I've said that if you've been to the Theology for Everyone's, I think they're really valuable. Now, that's probably biased because I'm the one talking most of the time in them. But I actually went by, I was sitting on my porch last night, and my wife comes out and she's like, "What are you listening to?" I'm like, "I'm listening to Theology for Everyone on biblical sexuality that I did." She's like, "Why are you listening to yourself talk?" I'm like, "Because I didn't hear myself that night," right? Like I was, but yes, like I'm a huge believer we need nights to talk about things in depth in ways that we can't on a Sunday. Doesn't mean we don't want to have depth on Sundays. I feel like we do. But there are some things that are really hard to talk about and to have dialogue around on a Sunday. And so we absolutely plan on picking them back up in September. I'm looking for suggestions about what you'd like us to talk about, if that makes sense. Because over the last year and a half, we've gone through most of the major theological kind of overarching topics. So somebody asked me the other day, are we going to revisit political theology in the fall? Probably not. Right? If you were not here this morning, I described my perception of that. It's like a third grade talent show. All the acts are bad, but you still have to watch. Right? So we probably won't come back to that one, but I'm open to anything else. One of the things I love doing, guys, I love researching things. I love like finding out about things. Like that's a passion for me. And so if you have something you'd like us to talk about, all you have to do is give me the idea, and I'll run. Right, I'll run with it, try to figure it out as best I can, and if I can, I'll find somebody who can. So yes, we hope we can definitely plan on continuing to do that. Anybody else? Going once? It only goes once here. All right, so all right, over there. Yes, ma'am. No worries.
I just want to say thank you. Thank all the staff. You guys are so awesome.
Thank you very much.
Dinner was great. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks for being here. Let me just say this, as you're processing all this, if you have any questions that kind of originate or kind of pop in your head, don't ever be afraid to reach out to us. Like, you're never going to offend us with questions or thoughts or any of that stuff, right? You might offend Don, but but the rest of us will take it, right? So all right. So thank you for saying that. It is our pleasure. We love what we do. And it's a pleasure to be part of this. So thank you for that. But I'm going to pray, and then we'll get out of here. Father, thank you for this night. Thank you for what you're doing here amongst your people. God, what a pleasure it is to be able to gather together and to just celebrate what you are at work doing, and to think about the privilege that you allow us to be part of this. How amazing is that? And it's even better when you like the people. And so, God, thank you that not only do we exist together, but for my part, man, I really like the people that I get to do this with. And so thank you for that. As we anticipate the next year, we look to you. Our hope is you and you alone. Father, guide us, direct us, help us to be about your business and your kingdom in all that we do. And Father, through this body, transform this neighborhood, transform this city, transform this world through your people. Let us be about that. Lord, it's in the beautiful name of your Son, Jesus, I pray. Amen. God bless you guys. You're loved. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you again soon, everybody. God bless you, man.